Here's my question for you. Are you a crappy friend? Okay, it's interesting to hear anyone say yes, because I think most of us think no, right? Like we don't think we are. Like if I sat down and spent time with you on that, I bet you could probably tell me a few ways that you show up really well for your friends when they need you. Like you'd probably tell me how you helped a buddy move, which is like the ultimate test of friendship, or you helped a girlfriend who through a tough breakup, or how you're the one in your friend group who initiates fun nights out for you and everybody to get together. But if I asked you a different question, if I said, do you have any friends that are kind of crappy? Well, you'd probably tell me yes, right? You'd say yes, and you'd tell me some stories of that too. Stories where you were trying to do what was right, and they ghosted you and didn't show up for you and didn't ask you anything about your life when you got together right now. And so most of us believe that there are some crappy friends in the world. It's just that we aren't one of them, which I get, but I think reality is a bit more complicated than that, right? Because even though you feel like the good friend who's always making the effort, probably somewhere in the world today there is somebody who thinks you didn't show up for them well, or you betrayed them or their friendship, or you didn't support them in their hour of need. And who's right about all that? I don't know. Your version of the events or their version of the events? I don't know. Maybe it's neither. Maybe it's both. The frustrating reality of friendship is this: we don't always show up the way we wish we would. We don't always bring our best selves into our relationships. And even when we're trying to be helpful, anyone who's ever been in a crisis can tell you, not all help is helpful. Some people will show up in your life and they'll make things better. And some people will show up in your life and they will make things worse. And sometimes those are the exact same people, right? So we're continuing our series on situationships today, and we're looking at biblical wisdom for the relationships that we find ourselves in. And today we're talking about friendship, which is a topic that should hit all of us, because all of us want close friends. I don't care if you're the biggest introvert on the planet, you need friends. There is a deep, deep desire in us. It's how God actually wired us up to know and to be known, to love and to be loved, to accept and to be accepted, to tease and be teased. Like, it's psychological, biological, and I would argue it's quite spiritual. So today, let me point you to a guy that was going through it in the Bible and talk about how his friends that showed up and where they got it right and where they got it absolutely wrong. And hopefully along the way, we can learn some things and some better ways forward for our relationships. We're going to look at one of the most raw and honest books in the entire Bible, the book of Job. If you want to learn about friendship, especially how to show up for people in pain, this is one of the best places you could go. Job sits in the Old Testament as part of what we call wisdom literature, and it's alongside books like Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. But unlike Proverbs, which often gives you like these neat, clean principles about how life works, Job actually wrestles with the reality that life does not always work that way. It asks a harder question, like what do you do when life falls apart and none of the usual explanations make sense? And some of you know exactly what that feels like, and this is exactly where Job finds himself. At the beginning of the book, Job is described as a man who is righteous and upright and faithful. So we start the story, he has a thriving family, he has a lot of wealth, and he's a well-respected dude. But by every measure in his life, things are going pretty well. Like all of Job's graphs, if they had them back then, were going to go up and to the right. And then almost all at once, everything collapses. He loses his livestock, which is his livelihood and wealth. He loses his servants, and then he loses his children in a single tragic event. And then his own health starts to deteriorate. So he's covered in painful sores. He's sitting there in ashes, and he's trying to make sense of the total wreck that his life has become. He wasn't just having a bad week. This was like catastrophic loss. This is the kind of pain that shakes your assumptions about God and about life and about how the world works. And in that moment, Job's friends show up. And I want us to see it because I actually think they get some things right when they show up. They get some things wrong also. But they get some things right, and I want you to see his friends at their best. So Job's friends show up. He's in the midst of pain. Let me read it to you. Job chapter 2, we'll start with verse 11, we'll put it on the screen. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they each came from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They made an appointment together to come show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him, and they raised their voices and wept. And they tore their robes and sprinkled dusts on their heads toward heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. This is wild. They sit with him. They come to show him comfort and sympathy. And when they see him, they can barely recognize the guy, right? His suffering is that bad. And then they do something which I think is pretty wild if you did it nowadays. They sit down with him on the ground in his pain, and they sit there for 7 days and 7 nights, and no one says a word because they see how great his suffering is. Imagine friends showing up for you while you're in pain and you're going through it, and they just sit there and say nothing. And that is where they get it right, actually. They come, they sit down, and they stay quiet. They don't try to fix it. They don't try to explain it. They don't try to make it better. They just show up and sit in it with him. And honestly, this might be the best example of friendship in the entire book, in all of the Bible, maybe. Maybe the best thing that they did in that moment was nothing. Now, some of you have experienced this. You've had a moment in your life where everything was heavy, where everything was confusing or painful, and someone showed up for you. And they didn't preach at you. Side note, why is preaching at someone always a negative thing? I took that personally. They didn't correct you. They didn't rush you through it. They were just there. And somehow, that was exactly what you needed. Like, presence can be powerful like that. But then something in the story shifts. After 7 days, Job finally speaks, and then his friends start talking. And from that moment on, everything begins to go downhill. It's almost impressive how fast it unravels in this story. 7 days of silence, which is incredible discipline, and then the second they open their mouths, it's like, well, we had a good run, guys. You guys were doing so well, because what they do next is what most of us are tempted to do. They start trying to explain why all of this is happening. They begin connecting dots that do not need to be connected. They start saying things that sound spiritual and thoughtful, but underneath it all is this subtle message, hey, Job, this probably has something to do with you. This is probably kind of your fault. And they don't come right out and say it at first, but it's there and you can feel it. And if you've ever read this, they just keep going and going. If you've tried to read the book straight through, this is the part where you're like, are we still doing this? Are you guys still talking? It's like 3 guys who discovered podcasts before podcasts ever existed. And they just keep like circling the same ideas, and they're getting more confident and less helpful with everything that they say. And the longer the talk, the worse it gets. Because now they're no longer helping. They're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. And in the process, they're actually adding weight to Job's pain instead of lifting it. They showed up to comfort him, and now they're exhausting him. And they move from just sitting there and being present and trying to be helpful, and they move to this space where now they talk like they have all the answers. And if we're honest, we can be like this too, because we feel pressure in those moments. When someone is hurting, we feel like we need to say something meaningful, something helpful, something that fixes it or explains it or at least makes it feel like we're doing something in the moment, because silence feels awkward. So we fill it. We throw all sorts of words out there. We offer advice too quickly. We try to solve what we don't really understand. We start sentences with, well, at least, which, by the way, has never helped anyone in the history of the world, that sentence. And here's the hard truth of all this. You can be completely sincere and completely unhelpful. Job's friends were not trying to hurt him. These guys cared. They showed up. But somewhere along the way, they started trusting their words more than their presence, and that's where they got it wrong. We often have a real similar instinct, right? Sometimes I'll have people ask me, because I'm a pastor, and people will say to me like, hey, how should I show up for my friend in the hospital? And they're like, do you have any scripture I should read when you talk to someone in the hospital, to my friend, or is there anything that I could say to them while they're really going through it? And I totally get that instinct. We want to say something helpful, but usually I tell people, just be there. Like, show up and shut up. Just be in the room and pray. And sometimes that's the best thing you can do. And I think this leads us to an important principle when it comes to friendship. Good friends do not always have answers. They have just awareness of the situation. They can read the room. They develop a sense for what the moment actually requires. They learn when to speak and when to stay quiet and when to just sit with something without trying to fix anything. That kind of awareness is not automatic. It's formed over time. It comes from us paying attention, from caring more about your friends than about your performance in the moment, and from being secure enough to not need to fill all the quiet moments with your talking. Because a lot of us think being a good friend means saying the right thing. But if Job teaches us anything, it's that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is not say anything at all. It's just to be there, to be present, to let someone feel what they're feeling without trying to manage it or rush them through it. That kind of friendship is rare, and when you experience it, you know it. But friendship is not just about showing up in hard moments. It is that, for sure. But it's also about what happens over time in your life because of the people you're connected to. Friendship is not just emotional support. It's shared perspective, and it shapes how you see the world. C.S. Lewis captures this idea better than almost anybody, I think. After his friend Charles Williams died, he wrote this. I'll put it on the screen. In each of my friends, there is something that only some other friend can fully bring out. By myself, I am not large enough to call the whole man into activity. Now that Charles is dead, I shall never again see Ronald's reaction to a specifically Charles's joke. What Lewis is saying is that when his friend died, he didn't just lose that friend, he lost what that friend brought out in everyone else. He lost a way of seeing, a way of experiencing a whole dynamic of friendship that couldn't easily be replaced. This is what friendship does. It expands your world. It brings out parts of you that would not exist otherwise. It gives you angles and perspectives and experiences that you can't create on your own. And it's beautiful how God designed us for that. I think this is why you need more than one friend. I don't care how introverted you are, this is true. No one person can bring everything out of you. No one person can meet every need and see every angle or carry every part of your life. I'm not saying you need 20 friends. Introverts, don't freak out on me here, okay? I'm not going to take that away from you. I'm saying you need a few with some different perspectives, which is really important to understand, especially in a culture that puts so much pressure on a relationship to be everything. And not any single relationship can be everything. You need friendships that challenge you, friendships that comfort you, friendships that make you laugh, friendships that help you think. And as you build those kind of relationships, you're not just surrounding yourself with people, you're allowing your life to be shaped in ways that would not happen otherwise. And it all starts with you becoming the kind of friend who shows up well. Not the person with all the answers, but with the awareness to just know what the moment needs. So let me give you an application of this for marriage. A lot of us marry a person that we would say, they're my best friend. And I totally get that. Abby and I have said that about our own marriage. But I think it's a mistake that we can make in marriage is thinking that our spouse is going to be all the things for us. They're going to be our best friend and emotional support and spiritual guide and fun companion and thinking partner and adventure buddy. And maybe your spouse will be most of those things, maybe a lot of those things, but most likely they won't be all those things. No one person can really check the box. Your husband may be thoughtful and empathetic and a good listener, but he will never be like one of your girlfriends. That's just a fact. There will just be things he will never, ever get. Ever. Ever. It's not because he's dumb. It's because he's not a woman. And vice versa, right? This goes both ways. We have to remember that in marriage, your spouse is your primary relationship in life, but it's not meant to be your only relationship. Hear me on this. I'm not saying that every night you need to go out, married couples, I'm not saying that every night you need to go have guy time or every night you need to get together with your girls instead of your spouse. But I am saying we do need some of that. We all do. So men, when your wife says, I want to go on the women's retreat with the church to the lake, and you say, go for it, baby, I'm going to handle everything at home. You go do your thing. And ladies, when your husband says, I need to go to that fire pit with the fellows tonight, or I need to go on that men's retreat, you say, go for it, baby, I'll handle everything at home. Give each other the space to develop healthy friendships, because ultimately your marriage is going to be better for it. The truth is, there are things about me that are not great as a husband. And sometimes my guy friends can tell me what those things are, and I will hear it differently than if my wife tells me. I don't think I'm alone in that. I bet you're all the same way. We all need friendships where we all need friendships, even in marriage, where we are known, where we can know and be known, where we can love and be loved, where we can accept and be accepted, and occasionally punch and be punched, but respectfully and gently. So what would it look like if we all commit to showing up as better friends for the people around us? Like so many things in this series, I'm not saying run out and cull your list of friends, right? Like let's just, hey, here's the application today. Go out, find better friends because all your friends suck. Like I'm not saying that. I'm saying be a better friend. Actually be the person you want others to be. Here's the principle we need to keep in mind. Listen to these words from Paul in Galatians 6. He says this, do not be deceived, God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then, as we have the opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. Okay, this is just a good life principle. You have to be what you want to see. You have to sow something if you want to reap something. So if you want friendships that are deep and honest and present, then guess what? You have to be deep and honest and present. That's just how life works. So often we want others to show up for us and then complain when they don't, and we don't really want to look in the mirror. Like if you know people that are deep and honest and good, and you are not those things, why would they want to be friends with you? I think this is crucial for us as a faith community to really get a handle on. We need to show up well for others. A few weeks ago, some students from a religious studies class at VCU came to our worship service to see what this Christian church is about, and a few of them met with me in my office to kind of debrief that and ask me some questions, like for their religious studies class. And so after visiting here, they had some questions, and one of the questions they asked me was basically, what is this church all about? Like, what are we trying to do here? And I love that question because every organization needs to answer that question. Every business, nonprofit, church, whatever, like, why do you exist? And what I said was, we're trying to help people find God and find each other. We need the Lord, and we need to be connected to our Creator. If we don't do that, we're going to struggle in life as we completely fight against how God made us. We will not flourish if we if we don't know God and know how he designed us to function. But beyond that, we're not going to flourish unless we connect with each other. It is not good for man to be alone. That's in the 2nd chapter of the Bible. And yes, it's about marriage in part, but it's also just about relationship. We are designed to function with a network of friendships. And the church is a network of relationships of people who show up for each other and who are guided by a mission, who are united by a common cause. And this is powerful stuff. Jesus had his disciples, as many of you probably know, and we think of those guys in his inner circle as kind of his serving team. Like he went and did a thing, and then they went and like worked the crowd or whatever, and served him. Like they were there to learn from him and do whatever he told them to do. But on the night Jesus gets arrested, which functions as like the last big speech that he has with these guys, listen to what he tells them in John 15. John 15, start with verse 13. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends, for all that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. The greatest form of love, according to Jesus, is sacrifice, that you would lay down your life for someone. And I think we would all agree with that, right? That's why if you want to say that you really, really care about someone, you might say something like, I would take a bullet for that person. And we mean like, this is the highest expression of my love. But laying down his life, he says, for who? A spouse? His country, his mom? No, his friends. Jesus points out that sacrifice within friendship is one of the highest forms of love you can express in this world. And notice he doesn't say, and you should sacrifice for me because you're my servants. No, he says this to them. He says, I call you guys friends. Someone has joked that Jesus' greatest miracle of all time was having 12 friends in his 30s. And maybe there is something to that, right? But let's not miss the point. Having friends and showing up for them well is one of the most loving things you will do in this life. And it's something we need to get good at, especially in the church. Listen, the more digital and AI-driven our world gets, the greater the need for real relationships, real flesh and blood people who show up well in the real world. I want this church to be digitally savvy because that's where you can find people. But I want us to be like analog obsessed so that we will actually come together and be together and walk through life together. That's why we've created indoor and outdoor space at our property at 2810 for people to gather throughout the week. That's why we're planning Summer of Fun. That's why we have small groups and formation groups. That's why we even gather here in person at the Bird every week, because there simply is no true substitute for real relationship. I don't care how good the AI gets or how good of a robot they create, and I guess those are coming too, which will be a solution that no one wanted. Thanks for that. There is no substitute for a man or woman created in the image of God with a soul. That's the good stuff. And we need to lean into that. Now, you might nod your head along with this and be like, yeah, that's what we need. But listen, it's going to require something from you. In order to be in relationships and have good friendship, you are absolutely going to have to give up some freedom. When you have a friend, you give up some freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want. So much of our culture is like, keep all your options open at all times. Don't commit to anything. But I don't know how else to say it except this. That just isn't working. It isn't. Being non-committal is overrated. Commitment is where it's at. Commit to a job. Commit to a church. Commit to a diet plan. Commit to a girlfriend and marry her. Commit to being there and raising kids. Commitment is just so underrated and it's so valuable in our world. Not just waiting for them to commit to you, but you actually committing to them. So in the next month, you're going to hear about a lot of opportunities to find your people at our church. In addition to summer groups, there'll be some men's groups and women's groups and different things happening. We're starting Summer of Fun. And we're also going to have a night coming up at 2810 where we're bringing in a counseling organization that we are connected to, the Barnabas Center. And they're going to do a training for us one evening on a Friday night on how to be a better friend and have better conversations. And I know there's stuff, and I'm telling you, it's helpful. It's going to be fun. We're actually going to have one of their people on stage here in 2 weeks to talk it through. So maybe mark your calendar for that night. I'll give you the exact date coming here soon, but just wait for it. On a Friday night, we're going to do a friend gathering night to talk about how to do this better. We'll give you a few more details here in the coming weeks. All right. At some point, if we're honest, we have all been Job, like in the scriptures. We have all needed someone to show up for us in a hard moment. And at some point, we have also all been like his friends. We've said too much, tried to fix too much, or fix too fast, or we missed what someone actually needed. And that's why the gospel matters here in this, because Jesus is a friend also, and he's the friend who gets it right. He doesn't stand at a distance from our pain. He steps into it. He meets us right where we are and carries what we can't carry on our own. And ultimately, he doesn't just sit with us in our suffering. He goes to the cross for us. So we're going to celebrate that this morning in a time of communion. When we come to communion, we're not coming as people who have figured out friendship and gotten it all right. We're coming as people who need grace. So you're going to have the opportunity to go out the left of your aisle, down the front, and there will be bread and juice that represents the body and blood of Christ. You can tear off the bread, dip it in juice, and remember that sacrifice. That bread reminds us that his body was broken for us. The cup reminds us that his blood was poured out for us. And that means that you are forgiven. And you're forgiven for the ways that you have gotten friendship wrong, and you don't have to be stuck repeating those same patterns over and over. So I'm going to ask you to come forward and receive that grace again and let it shape you and let it soften you. And then go be the kind of friend who shows up the way Jesus has shown up for you. Also, during this time, we're gonna sing together. You can sort of lift your voice. It's something we do as a community together. And there are boxes on each of these tables. You can give an offering there, give back a portion of what God has given to you, or you can put your connection card in there and let us know how we can be praying for you. Let us know that you were here. You can drop those in those boxes as well. So let's stand together. Let me pray, and then we will receive communion. Lord, thank you for being one who came to earth, spent time with people, and you said, hey, I don't call you servants, I call you friends. And so there's a bond there, Lord, that we have, a relationship that is powerful. And yet we still acknowledge you not as like buddy Jesus or buddy God, but you are our Father. You are the Creator. You are the powerful ruler of all. And so we come to you also in that spirit, knowing that you've invited us in as friends and family, but that you are over all. And so today, as we take communion, may we remember the sacrifice that you made for us and how it covers over all of our sins and our failures and our shortcomings and the way we have blown it. As we take communion, may we remember that. And Lord, knit this community together in better friendship. And God, may it not become closed off, but it may be a very open community to outsiders, bringing others in to experience your love. In Jesus' name, amen.